Okay, we're going to continue adding to your sociological toolkit by looking at the concept of status in this particular SY1 screencast. In the last three screencasts, we've been looking at the concept of culture and analysing the way in which culture is transmitted through processes of socialisation and social control. And in the next two screencasts, we're going to start to explore another key question that's central to the discipline of sociology. How are individuals assigned their standing, their respect and their influence in their society? And we're going to look at two concepts to analyse that question. In this screencast we're going to look at status, and then in the next screencast we're going to look at the concept of power. As usual, try and make lots of notes as we go through these ideas, and let's start with a definition of status. So a status is a person's social standing. So it's about the position that they occupy within a social group or within society as a whole. And also it's about the amount of prestige or respect that's associated with that particular position. Now, most societies tend to be fairly hierarchical, which is an issue that we're exploring in a lot more detail when we look at the concept of stratification. So because societies and social groups tend to be based on social hierarchies, we can talk about individuals occupying either a high status position or a low status position. The other distinction that I want to draw your attention to in this screencast is this distinction between ascribed social status and achieved social status. So an ascribed social status is where an individual's position in society is very much fixed by the social characteristics with which they're born. And these characteristics might be a person's gender, it might be a person's ethnicity, it might be the social standing of their family. In contrast, an achieved social status is one that's earned. So it's based on individual merit, it's based on the performance, qualification or attainment of an individual person. So the royal family is obviously a good example of an ascribed status position within Britain. It's a position that people are born into, it's based on the hereditary principle. Whereas an achieved status is something that you earn during your life and is a reflection of your hard work and your talents. And the term that sociologists use to describe a society based on achieved status is they use the term meritocracy. Okay, before we finish, I just want to briefly mention a couple of uses of the term status in the sociological literature. And the first book that I want to mention briefly is this book, The Spirit Level, a very influential book published a few years ago by Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett. And the central argument at the spirit level is big income inequality, so big gaps between the rich and the poor, are a bad thing for society and leads to a whole range of social problems. And the reason that inequality is such a bad thing for society, according to Wilson and Pickett, is mainly because they believe that it makes status differences much more extreme and salient, and this generates a higher level of insecurity about our worth and about where we stand within the social hierarchy. So according to Wilson and Pickett, we should dislike inequality, we should dislike living in a society where there are big gaps between the rich and the poor, because it produces status anxiety, and they believe that such anxiety in turn leads to chronic stress, it leads to health problems and other undesirable social outcomes. So in unequal societies where there are higher levels of status anxiety, the result is that the members of that society are more likely to feel stressed and deprived, they're more likely to get depressed, they're more likely to smoke, to drink, to take drugs, to overeat, or even to engage in violent behaviour. And another argument that Wilson and Pickett make that's connected to the cartoon that you can see on the screen is they argue that status anxiety also leads to conspicuous displays of consumption. So buying fancy cars, big houses, luxury clothes, all of which serve no obvious social function apart from reassurance about one's place within a social hierarchy. And another study that makes a similar argument about status anxiety and frustration, and one that we'll look at in more detail when we tackle the youth culture topic, is a very old sociological study from America based on the work of Albert Cohen. And Albert Cohen talks about status frustration. So his argument is that the inability to gain high social status can lead to frustration and anger, and he argues this can manifest itself in a variety of ways. This can lead to delinquency, this can lead to the development of counter-school subcultures. So Cohen's argument is that groups who find themselves stuck towards the bottom of social hierarchies are much more likely to resolve their status frustration by rejecting the success goals that are part of the mainstream culture and replacing them with an alternative set of goals that they can realistically achieve within a delinquent subculture. Okay, so in this screencast we've started to look at how individuals are assigned their standing and their respect within society. What we're going to do in the next screencast is have a look at this issue about influence, and we're going to do that by looking at the concept of power.